Hello, Trailblazers, and welcome to another edition of Entrepreneur Journey. I am your host, Doug Greathouse, and today I am thrilled to have with me James Powell. James, how are you today?
Great, thanks. Thanks for having me, Doug.
Well, James, we need to know a little bit about you and your business, so kind of fill us in on that.
Yeah, so I help entrepreneurs be able to make much better decisions in their life and business using the number one strategy of the world's highest achievers and top performers.
Nice, nice. So we're going to dive into that and your story here in a minute. But what I like to do at the beginning of all these interviews is kind of ask some fun questions. So just kind of get to know you on a more personal level, right? So the first question I have, do you prefer pie or cake?
Well, based on what I eat the most, I'll have to go with pie, particularly
Yes.
pork pies. I like pork pies a lot.
Nice.
Maybe it's not everyone's cup of tea, but
Nice. Yeah, I like chicken pot pie as
yeah,
well.
cool. Nice.
See, pie gets the advantage of not only being, there's no savory cakes, right? There's no chicken pot cake.
Well, now there is.
So I didn't distinguish it had to be a dessert, right? So I prefer pies as a dessert over cake most often. There's a few cakes that I like, but yeah, I have to agree. I like pie myself.
Cool.
So next question, who would play you in a movie of your life?
Yeah, there's an actor called Asa Butterfield. He's a younger actor, but he's been featured in films like X and Y. I'm not sure if you've seen that, about a mathematical prodigy. And he's played a few different roles in different films, typically center around the role of a young genius, basically, who's is interested in mathematics and the beauty of nature and understanding things. And I really appreciate that kind of outlook on the world as well.
Nice, nice. If you pass on one of your talents to your children, what would that be?
I would say pattern recognition, because that's applicable in all kinds of fields in life and business. Being able to not only understand people psychologically through the behavioral patterns and so on, but then also making sense of it. It basically comes down to problem solving, which is a key skill that everyone needs to know.
Yeah, I totally agree. So now let's dive into your story a little bit. Like I realize we don't have all day, and there's a lot to most everybody's entrepreneur story. But if you could tell us like where you started from, right? Your initial inception into entrepreneurship, if you will, and then kind of the cliff notes around the way, like the highlights, and things like that, and to where you are now.
Sure. My first experience with entrepreneurialism essentially was when I was in my mid to late teens, and my landlord at the time asked me if I would like to do some part-time door-to-door sales in the evening for one of his side businesses. So I knocked around a whole bunch of doors. It took me a full week to knock on the first door because I used to be so shy, and I was just afraid of knocking on the door. And then eventually, it literally like took a whole week to do that. I looked at myself and I thought that I can't live the rest of my life like that. So I literally just forced myself to go to just one door. That's what I thought. Okay, just one door, and I knocked on it. And I was afraid of dogs at the time as well, not anymore. But when I knocked on this door, this massive Saint Bernard dog, this like one of the biggest dogs, like on flipping, jumped up and same height as me. I'm 6 feet, right? And it put his paws on my shoulders, and I'm like, I was crapping myself, but because I made that challenge to no matter what happens, go to that door and stay at the door, right? And the dog, this huge dog, jumped up on my shoulder. I'm like crapping it, but I stayed there. And the owner came around and said, "I said, okay, it's just softy." And I'm like, well, there can't be any more doors more difficult than that. So, so I knocked on the door, and then within a couple of weeks, I was making about £700 per week, just working part-time in the evenings doing sales. And that was really insightful for me, very inspiring. And that was really my first experience of business. And then, so fast forward a number of years, I became number one for sales nationally, doing door-to-door sales again within 6 weeks. I broke all but one sales records in the company's history. It's the second largest company in its industry in the UK. I worked with Hilton as my first client in my first business on a €1 million project, actually in Ireland. Helped them win an international competition. And then, these were kind of experiments to kind of dip my toe in the water, so to speak, to see what I like, see what I'm good at. And essentially, it all comes down to sales and having conversations with people, and then also making highly successful decisions with intuition. And so, like that's always been the core of my success, and that's my transferable skill that I'm now helping others learn, is how to be able to make those successful decisions with the number one strategy, the world's highest achievers, which is surprisingly intuition. So in their own words. There's countless speeches. I made a compilation video of all the world's most successful people, anyone you can give me the name of, and they say that. It's quite incredible.
Wow. Awesome. So I want to touch on the sales piece just for a minute, because I think that a lot of entrepreneurs don't get their business where they want to go because they don't break through that barrier of having to make sales. And when you're starting out, it's pretty much just you that has to make the sale, right? You can't, like, a lot of times you can't afford to bring on a sales team unless you get capital or things like that. And being able to master sales is one of the best things that you can do as far as an entrepreneur. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the key to a business. If you have no sales, you don't have a business. You have a potential for a business.
Yeah. So I get it probably was a big relief to you to be able to knock that peg down early on in your entrepreneur journey, and I kind of have it taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy. After I did that, then I reverted back into being shy. I'm introverted by nature, but being shy and introverted are different things. So I'm still introverted, but I'm not shy anymore. But after I finished doing those evening sales, I was no longer doing the activity that was helping me to not be shy, right? So I wasn't communicating with people, and so when I hadn't integrated or embodied that in as part of myself yet, or maybe just let go of something else as well. But so then later I discovered, I went through a whole self-development process, introversion and self-reflection, on what I need to change in order to not be shy anymore. And that's a very painful process. But then sales, especially if it's your first like foray into sales, it's very eye-opening and heart-opening too. It gives confidence when you're good at it, even when you struggle. It's a good learning experience. And then the most difficult thing that I had to overcome in terms of business, like building my baby essentially, is then trusting other people to do that for me. And that's another hurdle to overcome. But when you can do that and multiply your time and build positive relationships with like-minded people who have a different skill sets to yourself that complement you, then I mean, the world's open to you.
I agree. When you get confident and you feel like you've got a good grasp of something, especially just from my example, I've recently turned over some of the sales. I have been doing sales all myself, and it was because I like building relationships. I like talking to people. I like finding out what their struggles are and how I can help them. So be able to give up. It wasn't really giving up the sales process necessarily. It was giving up that piece of building the relationship, right? That I really didn't want to let go of, but I know in order to grow, I needed to do that. So I definitely get where you're coming from on being able to hand things off that you feel proficient in and good at, but you can't grow if you're doing it all.
Yeah, definitely.
So nice. Thanks for bringing some light to that. Let's dive into a little bit of your expertise a little bit. Can you share with us and provide some context around what it is exactly that you do to help entrepreneurs achieve even greater levels of success in life and business?
Sure. Well, a shocking 50% of people fail in business within the first 5 years, and they never give themselves better odds than literally random chance. And I believe the reason for that is because they never get exposed to the information or the knowledge that they need to develop their intuitive skill set in order to become highly successful decision makers as entrepreneurs. If you watch the video on my website, and I've got other videos with compilations and documents I share with people with quotes from the world's most successful people, any of whom you can give me the name of, like the founder of probably the most influential e-commerce and online retail platform, second richest bald guy in America, whose name you already know. Right? And like so many people in the world, all of them are literally saying on video, you can watch them on video saying that they made the most successful decisions with intuition, heart, gut, and not data or analysis, numbers or metrics, right? Those are good for many, many decisions, but those decisions that are life-changing, the trajectory-changing decisions, like life or death. In my case, I'll give an example of that. That could elevates people from being successful to extremely successful in ways which they could not predict. That's always done with intuition. And often it goes against logic, against reason. But once you understand actually intuition as I understand it, it becomes completely logical. It's just that most people are teaching intuition based on emotions and feelings and spontaneous fake feelings or general hunches. And they kind of blindly they navigate their way around different emotions. But intuition is not about guesswork. The way I teach intuition is being able to make highly successful, informed decisions using specific and actionable intelligence you otherwise wouldn't be able to acquire. And intuition is an information-seeking tool, and this is how I've been able to make my successful decisions, by not having to work things out by myself, not having to brainstorm or think things through in order to weigh up my options. What can I do? What I'm interested in, and so on, pro con list and whatever. But instead, I ask a question, I get the answer directly. Now, all I need to do is implement.
Wow. So can I ask a question, like a follow-up on that?
Yeah.
So a lot of people are, especially when they have a team, they're like, okay, this is the decision we need to make. Let's brainstorm. Let's bring the team in and I'll think about this. What you're suggesting is it's a lot more quick and intuitive than that whole process. Is that right?
100%. I recently just hired a VA. And so going through the process, they suggested 5 VAs for me to review, and we were going to have a group call together so we could have conversations. And they told me that they're currently they're working with 9,000 clients in their company, and they told me I was the first person to ever choose the VA before we got on the call. And
wow.
And I was quite surprised. I got 9,000 clients. I'm the first one who's ever done that. But when in the group chat that we had prior to the call, where we all were introduced to each other, I looked at their profiles and I went through them, assessing their profiles and so on, the way they communicated to me in the chat as well. And basically, there was only one person who I didn't cross anything off. The other ones, I was like, maybe not that, maybe not this, right? It was just some things that I didn't personally align with in my own values or the way I might do things. And this one guy, he did a lot of other things. He added even an emoji that represented the company that he was being introduced to me through, which I thought was very thoughtful attention to detail. And none of the others did that. And then he also referred to me by name directly, which I appreciated. He also gave gratitude and included the name of the person who introduced him in the chat. And he said, I'm excited to meet you, so express excitement. And he said, what else did he say? He said there was a lot of positives that he said, and these were all it is intuition, it's logic, it's reason and intuition together, intellect and intuition. Because once I weighed up those options, I could then ask myself, is this the right choice to make? Right. So I gathered the information first, and then I used my intuition to make the final decision, and I just went with it. It's like, yeah, that's the right choice. And the problem that most people have with that is that intuition only comes within a 2 or 3 second window. Right? Based on the research and the science of the neurobiology of it, it's measurable in terms of the flow of electrons through the neural system in the body, right? You can measure these things. And intuition happens within 2 or 3 seconds. And then after that, you start to think about it. So once you start thinking about it, it's already gone past that intuitive window. And then it's important to recollect what you intuited rather than your doubts, your questions about that. And that actually is quite difficult to master. But
I imagine.
It's it can take quite a lot of practice. I mean, that's what I teach people on how to do anyway with my intuition hacks, is by how to do that quickly. And it's just very useful. It goes beyond trusting your intuition, because a lot of people, a famous quote that a lot of people use is saying, trust your intuition. Well, how am I supposed to trust my intuition? Like, what's the process? But the way I do this you don't really need to trust your intuition. You just follow the steps. Intuition becomes evident, then essentially it becomes about what's happening around you rather than believing something, because intuition is not about guesswork. It's about following a step-by-step system or process to eliminate variables and then also make successful decision. By using your intuition as a form of like another piece of information within that process of making an informed decision. Is when you make high level decisions, you need to remove emotion out of the process when you're doing your due diligence, right? And then intuition is a way to gather information you otherwise wouldn't have access to. So
that's amazing. So systematizing the intuition, systematizing the decision, the quick decision making process based around your intuition is it's really powerful. Sounds like. So that's an awesome skill to teach people. Can you also share with us kind of your background and your experience in being able to make highly successful, informed decisions in your life, personally and professionally?
Yeah, 100%. So I give the example of becoming number one for sales nationally for the second largest UK company in its industry within 6 weeks, and I broke all but one sales record in its history. I wanted to break the last one as well, but I even broke the office manager's records, which he was both happy and sad about at the same time. This is pretty funny. And then, so I worked with Hilton as well. First client of my first company, €1 million project. Help them win an international competition. Like with my podcast, for example, after I finished a previous project, and then I used my intuition to ask the question, "What's next?" And the specific and actionable information that I received was the Spirituality Podcast, 1 episode per week, explore spirituality and self-development with high-achieving entrepreneurs. All right, that's quite a bit of detail, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that all came within that 2 or 3 second window that we have for intuition. It's based on feeling as well, like not emotion, but feeling. Those are different. Like emotion and intuition are not equivalent, but feeling is related to the body, and you're able to intuit how you feel as well physiologically. And when you speak, for example, you create sound waves, and you're familiar with how those sound waves feel, which is the whole point of singing and creating emotions through those, conveying feeling through sound waves and so on. And in movies, you have musical scores, right? That's why they play the same kind of scores in music to elicit certain emotions, because they have that resonance and that response in the human brain and the body. So it's the same when we speak. When you pay attention to the words you say and how they feel, you're able to translate these intuitive feelings into information, into words that you understand. And that's a process that I've done, whereby I'm now able to interpret my intuitive feelings into specific detailed information. And that's how within that 2 to 3 second window, I got that information for my podcast. I looked online and I looked for thespiritualitypodcast.com, which was available. Can you imagine nobody ever bought that before, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So now I'm category king, right? The Spirituality Podcast. I got my posting frequency, guest list, niche, and so on. I didn't need to work this out, brainstorm, or think things through. I just implemented it, started inviting people on my show. I've now interviewed famous people like Dr. John DeMartini, number one human behavioral expert in the world and celebrity in the hit movie The Secret about the law of attraction. I've interviewed a financial advisor to 2 US presidents, a multi-billion-dollar business advisor, corporate trainer to the world's leading companies who's helped grow a company to $1 billion in 5 years. The first woman to create an iPhone app, who Oprah Winfrey called the queen of apps.
Wow.
So like a lot of very successful people, and it all from just implementing what I received with my intuition, that specific information. And then personally as well, in my personal life, well, I'm still alive today because of this.
Wow.
From 2011 to 2014, I experienced cancer 3 times. And after the initial operation, I was going to 6-month health checkups. And I went to one of my appointments 2 months early because of my intuition telling me that I need to go there, right? Specifically telling me to go back there. And they reminded me that I don't need to come to my appointment for another 2 months. And I was like, yeah, I know, but can you check me, right? I didn't say like, come on, you need to check me. My intuition told me, but I just like,
yeah.
I just asked them, like, can you check me, right? And they did, and they confirmed that the cancer came back. And they said that the fastest they saw cancer growing was doubling per week, but mine was tripling. And that if I had waited until the time of my appointment, it would be too late to treat me and I would already be dead. And then they said that if I don't do chemo in the next 2 weeks, I wouldn't have long left to live. But based on my intuition, based on information as well, like chemo has 50% success rate. right? Like literally chance. So I want to give myself better odds than chance. And at the time, I found that it's not advice in any way for anyone, right? By the way, but it's just showing how I did it, right? And there's at the time I found a medication based on natural medicine in America that helps the body's own immune system fight cancer on its own, which had a higher success rate than chemo. But I wasn't able to access that medication, but it showed that the body's immune system can defeat the cancer, right? It just needs the right stimulus. And so what I did was I went to South Korea. I traveled to South Korea and I went there for 2 months. I did a natural, physical, and spiritual healing workshop for 2 months. I know that place from some martial arts that I do. So I went there and I came back to the oncologist at the time of my appointment when they said I would be dead. And then they said I don't need to do the chemo anymore because of my natural healing. It was actually going in reverse, such that they were so confident to say that I don't need to do it. But when I was in Korea, they said to, at this specific retreat, they told me to do the healing and then go back and do chemo. So I did chemo anyway, even though they said I don't need to. I had no pain or fatigue. My hair fell out, but it grew back. And then that was the second occurrence. The third time I came back, which was the end of 2013, going into 2014, I jumped straight into chemo again. And I thought that I can't keep going somewhere else to get healed. I need to heal myself. And this is a higher level of ownership. It's taking personal responsibility and doing things yourself rather than relying on someone or something else. So I used my intuition to understand what it was that the process that happened, the internal process that I went through, even though I was doing external physical actions as well, to help me realize an internal process. But once I realized what that internal process is, I didn't need to do those external actions anymore. So when I implemented it myself, the cancer dropped to 0 in less than a week. Like on the chart, it's like literally a straight line down. And they couldn't believe it. Told me it was impossible. And these were like oncologists, like 4 decades of experience, saying it's not possible, right? They couldn't believe it. And they tested me again a week later, still 0, and they dismissed me, and they couldn't explain it. And so that was back in 2014. Said I would never have kids because the chemo wrecked my fertility. I got 2 kids naturally.
Awesome.
And it's incredible experiences, in life and business, and it comes down to the decisions we make. And and many times, like when they told me I needed to do chemo, that was when my father came to the appointment with me. I asked him not to come because I already knew what I was going to say. I knew it would like destroy him, and he was shaking and trembling. But I had to ask him to be quiet because I'm like, I couldn't allow myself to get distracted by anyone else's emotions, no matter how much they love me, because I needed to make my decision using intuition successfully, and I had to eliminate those, any other input, or you could say information or other distractions, that might have prevented me from making a successful decision.
Wow.
Yeah.
So surely the sooner people learn how to do this on their entrepreneurial journey, to tap into their intuition, right? That's the sooner they know this, the more they can grow. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Because like I mentioned earlier, 50% of people fail in business in the first 5 years. That's because they're not exposed to this. But this, in the words of the most successful people in the world, right? That's why they became the most successful people. So the sooner people learn how to do this, the better. They will increase their chances of success, and their growth in business and in life will just be much better.
And is this something that it's transferable? Anyone can learn how to do this, or does it take a certain personality type or anything like that?
It is a transferable skill because intuition is a faculty of human beings, so everybody has it. Most people grow out of it as they mature. They go through adolescence and through their education and cultural environment and schooling and so on, which is in the West especially is mostly based on intellect and knowledge, and the intuitive sense that a lot of children display in their younger years kind of atrophies, right? So it becomes weaker out of not being used. And then where I benefited from that was that I was able to leave home at age 14 at a younger age, and I kind of lived by myself and was able to go into this in a lot more depth. I had the time and freedom to be able to do that. So I never lost touch of it, and actually got deeper into it and tried out a whole load of things experimentally and trying different things. Got a lot of training as well and mentorship through the years, with learning from different mentors of different cultures and traditions, and like touring the UK and speaking and so on with already experienced professionals, in different like spiritual and professional industries. So I'd really kind of got an accumulation of a lot of experience in a short time. But one of my hacks, because I call them intuition hacks, and I have 7 of them, and I teach them focused on speed of learning and speed of implementation. And the first goal is to become good enough to self-correct, because once you become good enough to self-correct, then your incremental improvements can become exponential growth, and you can, you self-multiply. Okay, you can recognize your own mistakes or errors of improvement and overcome them or achieve them. And one of my hacks, which is one I teach people the first, is where you're able to experience or acquire intuitive information without even needing to train and develop your intuition. It's literally a set of steps that you follow. So you don't even need to have any experience or do any training. You can literally just implement the steps and start experiencing results. That's like the ultimate hack.
Wow. So how can people connect with you to learn more from you and become even more successful decision makers in their lives and their businesses?
Yeah, so I have 2 websites. So one for my podcast, that's thespiritualitypodcast.com. And so there you can see a list of my guests, and you can sign up to the newsletter, and there's a whole load of, it's just completely free content with amazing people, highly successful, world-class, high-achieving entrepreneurs, exploring spirituality and self-development, many of whom said they've never explored those questions ever before on podcasts, and many of them have been on a lot of podcasts. And then you have my intuition training program called Intuition Hacks, which is intuitionhacks.com/unlock. And there you can sign up to my website, and then you go to the second page. There's a lot of information on there where you can see more information about my online course that you'll have access to. There's the one-on-one group coaching that we have each week. So we spend one-on-one time in a group setting every week going through all of your questions about intuition and how to make highly successful decisions using your intuition. And then we also have mastermind events, which on its own is worth tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm bringing in guests from my podcast and network to spend time in my group with my intuition hackers, so that you can ask any question you want to my guests and level up. Because one of the greatest ways I've experienced is by interviewing them on my podcast. One of the greatest ways to level up is to spend time being in close proximity with the people whose lifestyle and achievements and personality and character inspire you and that you want to emulate. And that's why I want to give my students, my clients, the greatest chance of success. And that's why I'm bringing them in as well.
That all sounds awesome. And just based on what you just said, I never like to be the smartest or most accomplished person in the room, right? I always want to have someone that to inspire me to get to where they're at. So I totally am on point with you there. That is amazing. And hopefully we're going to have James into the Entrepreneur Journey group to do a short training. Maybe he'll teach us a couple of those intuition hacks in a short training. So I'm going to ask James about that on another call, but hopefully he can jump into the Entrepreneur Journey group and come in and do a short training for us, because what he's talking about is business and life changing. It's not just simple, a little sales hack or a marketing hack or anything like that. This is stuff that gets ingrained in your brain and follows you, and you start knocking down things that you never thought you could knock down before. So James is definitely a great resource to tap into. So thank you, James, for being on the Entrepreneur Journey podcast. It has been a delight. Do you have any parting words for our entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I'm grateful to be here, and I would just recommend everyone to join your group and to receive that training I'm gonna provide for you. Because intuition, and like I said, about being able to make your most successful informed decisions in life and business using specific and actionable information you otherwise wouldn't be able to acquire. Like you said, it's not about these smaller decisions in life. You can use intuition for that. And part of the training I'm going to provide in your group is how to use these smaller decisions every day to build up a data set of experience that you can then use as a reference point for when you're making a high level decisions. because intuition, these life and business changing decisions, is really like those critical decisions that come along, infrequently, but when you make them the right way, they change everything for you and the people that you want to serve. So that's really all the smaller decisions are building you up to that, and when they come along, you're ready to do it.
Nice. I myself am looking forward to you doing that training in the group, and I know the audience is like they're probably watching this and saying, I hope it's already there in the group. So I can go check it out.
I'll have to get it done straight away.
That's right. So all the things that James talked about to get in contact with him, we'll put all those links below in the show notes if you're listening to this on a podcast. And if you're watching this on video, they will be in the description. So be sure to check out those links. And once again, James, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. And until next time, Trailblazers, keep moving forward.